A big hello to all sales creators, or what I like to call ourselves Salestors. I'm Ishita, and here's wishing all the women out there a very happy International Women's Day. The occasion is big, and Salestors is about to complete 6 months. To celebrate the occasion, here is Salestors' first ever video interview with an international keynote speaker and a revered sales strategist, author of best-selling and most coveted sales books and ebooks, a LinkedIn influencer, and a woman who is amongst world's top B2B sales experts of all time, Jill Konrath. Hi, Jill. Welcome to Salesters. It is so good to
Thank,
have you here.
thank you. It's fun to be here with you.
Thank you so much. So, Jill, your journey is so inspiring. I mean, you began working in sales with Xerox in 1978. And these more than 4 decades of selling, you must have seen the word change around you. So, from pre CRM to AOL to Google and Salesforce era. So, I'm really eager to know how you adapted to that change and what advice would you give the salesforce around the world to adapt to drastic change?
Like we're experiencing right now, drastic change, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, no, at first change is scary and it's off-putting and it's like, oh my goodness, I was doing really well, life was good, and then wham, something happens. And the wham could be, like COVID right now, but it could also be a shift in the economy. It could be your own market segment that's going bad. It could be a competitor enters your market and suddenly takes over and it ruins your opportunities. So I think that the key is to look at change differently, as opposed to it's like the oh my God reaction, which is what typically comes first. But okay, change has just happened. There's been a shift here. Now what'll work? What is going to work today? Because something's going to work, but we have to be willing to change who we are and to be willing to try new things. And I think that's the hardest part, because we have our habits, we have our ways of doing things. But the key question, I think, is what else can I do, or how can I change things and do things differently in order to create a new situation and to create an opportunity or to keep things moving along. But to me, change is scary and it's a chance for personal growth. So
That's I think that's perfectly said. Yes, we really need to, we need to be willing to change. I think, and I also believe that change is good. Change is always good. There are
yeah.
either, good days or there are learning days. So I think
Yes.
change is good.
Yes. One of the things I've learned over the years is to never look at myself as a failure, but to actually look at myself as a learner, and to see that when these things happen, that it is a chance for personal growth and it's a chance to actually get better. And so I never allowed the word failure to be in my vocabulary, even from the first day that I started in sales. But I did say, when these things happened, that I had a valuable learning experience. And I made sure that every time something negative happened to me, and many did, just it's the way of the world, that I would stop and say, okay, what did I learn? And sometimes it would take me a while to learn what I learned, because I'd have to go out and seek advice. I'd have to go do research. I'd have to spend a lot of time figuring out, what happened. But the key is to keep yourself in the learning mode and just not get down on yourself, but to just say, I haven't figured it out yet. And the word yet is so freeing. It means not a failure. You just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, we need to be patient and we need to just keep going. That, okay, it's not the end of the world. It's just a stepping stone.
Yes. And it's a scary one, and it's a growth opportunity.
That's very true. Very true. So, in fact, I really wanted to know about your journey that led you to becoming a writer. How did your first book selling to big companies happen?
Let me just give a quick Xerox from the Xerox moment. I was sold for Xerox, and I went to sales leadership, and then I moved into computer sales, and it was a top sales rep in the computer industry. And then I had 2 babies, and and I found it very difficult to keep up with the corporate world and to be in the office at 7:30 with 2 young children. It was really hard. And so I decided to start my own company. I worked for somebody else for a brief period of time. I decided to start my own company doing sales consulting. And so I took a look at what I was really good at and the lessons that I had learned in the different industries that I'd been in. And I targeted companies that had um, the same challenges and developed a specialty working with companies on product launch. And I would work with them on how to help their salespeople get out, create new opportunities faster, I guess, is the way I would say it, because mostly companies are very bad when they're launching new products. They think it's all about the technology or it's all about the features and the benefits that they bring, but it's not. It's all about the customer. It's how you word it. So I had a consulting firm for a number of years, and about excuse me, about 20 years ago, there was some bad economic times and the world changed just like that. And I was working full time with a couple major clients, big companies, and both of them were told by the financial Wall Street market that they had to deliver better earnings. And so they cut all consultants overnight. And so my business was wiped out and I had to start all over. And it was bad economic times. So, I mean, I've been through some of these cycles before. And it took me a few years to figure out what it was. But when I finally figured out the direction I wanted to go in during that time, I started picking up the phone or using email to call people to set up, because I was real clear on my direction. And suddenly no one answered the phone. All calls rolled to voicemail. Nobody responded to my emails. And I went, what in the world has just happened? I used to be really good at this. And at first I was really embarrassed because I was a sales consultant who had no clients. And that doesn't speak well for my ability. But finally I started talking to people. I said, are you having trouble, with nobody responding to you? And I heard, everybody heard, it was like everybody was having trouble. So once I realized that it wasn't me, that I hadn't become, terrible overnight, then I started becoming curious and started saying, what is working today? I mean, this has been a seismic shift in the marketplace. What is working? And I spent a full year researching and experimenting for myself and saying, I need to get my business back. So I'm going to become an experimenter. If what I was doing doesn't work, something does. Other people are out there selling. I just haven't figured it out yet. I'll come back to that. But so after a while, I was able to figure out a system that actually worked. And I got to the point where I had too many clients again, and my business was overwhelmingly full because now I knew what it took to get people to respond to me eagerly, excitedly. And then I said, oh my, I've just learned all this. And there's no book out there right now that tells you how to do this. Because believe me, I'd searched for every book and nobody was dealing with the how do you get in. Every sales book assumed you were sitting in front of a customer. And so I said, well, I have to write this book. And that's why I wrote the book, because I had learned a system, but I had to take me out of it and make sure that it was a system that would work regardless of the industry that a person was in, as long as they were selling business to business, which is my expertise. But I had to take me out of it. And then I wrote the book. And I wrote the book in 4 months, just because I had figured it out. And I just blocked time off. And I said, I'm just going to take this time and write this book. And boom, came out. And that was selling to big companies. And a few years later, I thought I'd said everything I ever needed to say to the entire world. That was all I knew was what I wrote. And a few years later, another issue emerged that I hadn't seen before. Suddenly, again, now we're fast forwarding a few years, and it was 2008, and the US had a big financial crisis again. And suddenly they were laying off people, and everybody had 2 jobs. I mean, everybody that was in the corporate environment was so overwhelmed. And suddenly deals that I was working on where people were ready to go ahead and start, they would start going silent and they would disappear and nobody would call me back. And it's like, what just happened? We were talking, they said yes, and suddenly I don't hear from them again. When I finally talked to my best customer, and he said to me, Jill, I'm not ignoring you. I am so busy. I don't have time to do anything. And part of me at that point went, oh my God, he's crazy busy. I mean, crazy busy. He can't move ahead. And so I thought, this is a new trend. We're dealing with overwhelmed people. And so then I wrote another book. I mean, I went, how do we do this? And I spent a year researching how do you deal with people who are in the overwhelmed mode, and how do you take that and apply it to the sales field? And then once I figured it out, then I wrote a book. So I have this thing about, I write books about problems that people face. And there are 2 more books after that. And again, they were problem focused books.
Yeah, that's one hell of a journey. I mean, the kind of ups and downs you must have faced. But yeah, I think that is why the books turned out so relatable. I mean, they actually have all the answers that salespeople are looking for in such times and such times of a crisis.
Yeah.
So,
And the other thing too, I would just say, I mean, I think that makes a difference. I think so many people who are in sales have written sales books are male. And there's a thing about guys not wanting to admit vulnerability, that they failed, that their business was in a bad shape. They want to project I'm a real.
I can do it. I mean, obviously, I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. I mean, there's this feeling there. And I went, wait a minute, that's not what I want. I mean, I would like to, but when I asked myself, I had read a book called The Higher Purpose. And it said, before you start any major project, say to yourself, what is my higher purpose in doing this project? And so before I wrote my first book, Selling to Big Companies, I said, okay, I'll do that. What's my higher purpose? And right away, I said, my higher purpose is to teach people how to get their foot in the door to actually meet with corporate executives. And I thought I went like this, and suddenly my brain screamed at me. And it said, no, it's not. And I went, I don't know where the voice came from, but it screamed at me, no, it's not. And I went, what is? And I sat for a few minutes, and I realized that my purpose was to make people feel that it was possible to sell to big companies, because so many people were discouraged. They couldn't get in to meet with executives. So if your job is to help people feel that it's possible, you write very differently. You can't come off as the expert, because if I came off as the expert with a background in corporate America and had the best sales training ever, people in smaller companies or that were new to sales would look at me and say, well, that's easy for you to say, Jill, but I haven't had the training that you've had, or I'm not a salesperson. I'm the owner of a small company who would love to work with one of the bigger companies. And so I realized that I had to come out and share my own insecurities, my fears, the fact that I'd had some bad years and had to figure out how to get through it. And by doing that, what happens is people go, well, shoot, she was down. She had some tough times. If she can do it, and here's the way. They felt like I was their friend who was just there to help them. And I think that's why my books have done so well, because people know that I'm not trying to brag about how great I was. I'm saying I really screwed up, and everything I'm teaching you because I did it wrong at first, and I thought I had it right, but then this happened, and so I tell people the truth.
Wow.